Catgirl unboxed. My hand slipped, and I accidentally clicked on an order for a Class S virtual companion from some sketchy GeoCities-era website. I figured I'd get a hard drive in the mail. Instead, I got a living, breathing Catgirl curled up in a shipping box. "Contract established," she said, licking the back of her hand and showing off a metallic collar. "Time for bed, master." I was so freaked out I knocked over my soda. Just put some clothes on first." The next day, my office crush texted me, "Hey, up for some gaming tonight?" Suddenly, a fluffy white tail tightened around my wrist. Master's friends list is for Sylvie only. And when a delivery guy started pounding on my door, she casually tore the metal deadbolt from its frame. "This trash is disturbing Master's nap. Time to take it out." 1. The window AC unit hummed, like an angry hornet trapped in a metal box. The blackout curtains were drawn tight, leaving the room illuminated only by the ghostly glow of my monitor. I just pulled a 3-day gaming marathon, finally beating that new, brutally difficult Souls-like that had just dropped. My fingers were still twitching over an imaginary controller. My brain was pure static. Grumble. My stomach roared in protest. Time for dinner. My vision was a little blurry as I mindlessly clicked on a random site from my browser's old junk bookmark folder. The page looked like a relic from the early 2000s, a chaotic mess of low-res GIFs and clashing colors. A dozen obnoxious pop-ups instantly flooded the screen. Limited time offer. Experience a Class S virtual companion. Soothe your lonely heart. The pixelated text flashed in a painful neon green. The site even had a few demo voice clips, cringy, high-pitched anime lines that made my soul want to crawl out of my skin. My cursor hovered over the tiny X in the corner, just as I was about to click it. Crash. Maybe my leg had fallen asleep. Or maybe 3 sleepless nights had finally short-circuited my brain. Whatever the reason, I suddenly lurched forward, my face nearly slamming into the keyboard. In the chaos, my elbow mashed down on the left mouse button. Click. The giant, rainbow-colored "Order Now" button in the center of the screen had been hit dead on. 2. Payment successful. Your exclusive Class S virtual companion, trial version, is on its way. An even uglier, more obnoxious pop-up appeared. The background of the page was now flashing with creepy, hot pink hearts. I just stared. My hand froze on a mouse. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. Sleep deprivation is no joke. What kind of ancient scam site was this? I glanced at the payment confirmation. Premium Virtual Emotional Support Program, trial. $29.99. It wasn't a lot of money, but this was a nightmare. For someone with social anxiety, the worst thing imaginable isn't talking to people. It's having to argue with a badly designed chatbot to get a refund. Just the thought of making a phone call or filling out a support ticket made my chest tighten. Whatever. I'll just eat the cost. Lesson learned. Out of sight, out of mind. I quickly closed the browser tab. I opened my food delivery app and ordered a large pepperoni pizza, my usual comfort meal. Then I slumped back into my chair to wait. I'll just pretend that never happened. 3. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello. Delivery for you. Want me to leave it in the mailroom or bring it up?" "Mailroom. The mailroom is fine." I practically shouted. Going to the communal mailroom in my apartment building was the absolute limit of my social energy. A face-to-face handoff with a delivery driver was my personal version of hell. "Mailroom it is. Thanks," I said. My voice rushed as I hung up like the phone was on fire. I let out a long breath. It was probably the new controller I'd ordered. Around 5 in the afternoon, when the sun wasn't quite so brutal, I put on my full suit of armor. Hoodie, sunglasses, and a baseball cap pulled down low. Dressed like I was about to conduct a covert operation, I finally worked up the courage to go downstairs. The mailroom was overflowing with packages stacked like mountains of cardboard. I found my parcel number on the digital locker screen and located the right one. It was a medium-sized cardboard box, taped up securely. It had some decent weight to it. The address was mine, but the sender was just a random string of letters and numbers. Probably the name of some overseas seller on eBay, I figured. Not thinking much of it, I grabbed the box and fled back to the safety of my apartment. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing me off from the rest of the world. I could breathe again. 4. I sliced through the black plastic wrap, revealing the cardboard box underneath. It was sealed with standard clear packing tape. I grabbed my box cutter and slid it open. The box was stuffed with inflatable plastic bubbles, packed so tightly I could barely see inside. They really went all out with the protection. I reached in. My fingers touched something cold and hard. It felt like a square metal case, maybe the size of a small computer tower or a large external hard drive. I pulled it out of the bubble wrap. It was a sleek, silver metal box, its surface as smooth and reflective as a mirror. There were no logos, no text, not even a single port. The only feature was a hairline seam running along the edge. I couldn't find a single screw. Weird. How was I supposed to use this? I turned it over and over, completely clueless. There was no user manual. My order history on a sketchy website had no link to a tech doc. Did I really pay $30 for a metal paperweight? As I puzzled over it, my finger traced the thin seam along the box's edge. I thought I felt a tiny, almost imperceptible indentation. On a whim, I pressed down hard on the spot with my index finger. 5. Click. A faint mechanical sound like a latch releasing. The metal lid of the box popped open, just a crack. Huh, so it does open. The lid lifted smoothly on a hidden hinge, revealing the inside. It was completely empty. No cables, no memory cards, not even a scrap of paper for instructions. Just a bare metal interior, so polished I could see my own reflection. I was baffled. What was this? Did I pay $30 for an empty, fancy metal box? Even scams were supposed to have some substance, right? I was about to curse out loud when I lifted the box closer to my face, tried to inspect the interior one last time. The entire box suddenly lit up, not with a glow, but as if the metal itself was turning transparent. It was like it had transformed into a solid block of flawless crystal. Light passed right through it, revealing every internal detail with terrifying clarity. Wait a second. It wasn't empty. There was something inside. Suspended in the very center of the now transparent box was a small, curled-up, white figure. It looked like it was sleeping. 6. Thud. The box slipped from my hands and landed softly on an old slipper, barely making a sound. My eyes were wide. The blood rushed to my head, then froze in my veins. The box's material had completely changed. The metallic sheen was gone. It now looked like a piece of milky, translucent quartz, as if it had melted and then instantly re-solidified. It looked like some kind of alien cocoon. The tiny white figure curled up inside seemed to be getting bigger. Its outline was becoming clearer, closer to the surface. It looked like it was about to break out at any moment. Was I hallucinating? It had to be the lack of sleep. I rubbed my eyes hard. When I opened them again, the cocoon was still there, lying quietly on the floor. It was still translucent. The white figure was definitely still inside. And was its shape becoming even more defined? Just then, a tiny, silent crack appeared on the surface of the cocoon. Crack. Another sound, so faint I almost missed it. The crack spiderwebbed outwards from the center. More and more fractures appeared, spreading across the entire surface. A soft, white light began to leak from the cracks. It was gentle, not blinding. 7. I instinctively stumbled backward, bumping into my desk chair. The wheels screeched against the floor. My heart was trying to hammer its way out of my chest. My mind was a complete blank. I stared, mesmerized at the cracking cocoon. The fissures multiplied until they covered the whole thing. Finally, crumble. It wasn't the sound of shattering. It was more like a block of sugar glass disintegrating into a million tiny crystals. It happened in complete silence. Then the fragments dissolved into motes of light that drifted into the air and vanished. There was no debris left on the floor. Just a person, a girl, curled up in a ball, wearing a simple white dress. She was hugging her knees. Long, silver white hair cascaded over her shoulders, hiding part of her face. But what made me freeze were the two small, fluffy, pointed ears poking through her hair. They were the same pure silver white as her hair. One of the ears twitched. At the same time, a long, fluffy, equally white tail emerged from behind her, sweeping lazily across the floor. I was frozen solid. I had forgotten how to breathe. Was this some kind of cosplay? But those ears and that tail looked too real. They moved as if they were a natural part of her body. Impossible. This breaks every law of physics. Am I dreaming? I pinched my thigh. Hard. Ow. Yep. Not a dream. The girl on the floor stirred. She slowly lifted her head. Her silver eyelashes fluttered, and she blinked her eyes open. They were the color of the purest amethyst, crystalline and clear, yet they held an inhuman, captivating magic. She looked around, a little disoriented. Her small nose twitched, as if she was smelling the air. Her amethyst eyes scanned the room. Finally, they landed on me. Her eyes lit up. The confusion vanished instantly, replaced by an expression I couldn't quite decipher. It was the look of a child who had just found their long-lost favorite toy. The corners of her lips curved into a smile, revealing a small, sharp canine tooth. Contract established. She slowly rose to her feet with the grace of a ballerina. The fluffy tail swayed gently behind her. The white dress was a bit short, revealing long, slender legs. She was barefoot. Ignoring my bulging eyes, she raised a delicate, pale arm. With a flick of her wrist, a small, black collar glinted into existence between her fingers. Data repository initiated. She gently clasped the collar around her own neck. Click! The lock fastened with a soft snap. A faint blue light seemed to flow for a moment along the inside of the collar. Designation S013. She tilted her head, her impossibly beautiful purple eyes fixed on me with a look of pure curiosity and something else. Something that made my heart hammer. A chilling sort of focus. Codename, Sylvie. Her tail gave a little flick. Confirmation complete. She took a step forward, so close I could smell a clean, crisp scent coming from her like freshly fallen snow. Her silver cat ears twitched. She tilted her head again, her gaze so intense it felt like it was burning itself into my soul. There was a hint of pure innocence in her eyes, mixed with something else I couldn't place. A kind of possessiveness. Her lips parted, and a puff of warm air hit my chin as she spoke. A pleasure to meet you, Master. Now, would you like me to warm your bed? Whoa! My body reacted 1,000,000 times faster than my brain. I leaped backward, crashing right into my desk. A sharp pain shot through my lower back. The half-empty can of Coke on the desk tipped over, spilling sticky brown liquid all over the floor. Warm my what? No! My voice was shaking. My face felt hot enough to fry an egg. Don't come any closer, I stammered, pointing a trembling finger at the cat girl who called herself Sylvie. Put some clothes on, wait. What are you even wearing? I was rambling, my eyes darting everywhere, but at her. And what are you? Where did you come from? What was with that box? My heart was about to explode. She blinked her amethyst eyes, seeming confused by my violent reaction. Source information. Retrieving. She tapped the black collar on her neck with a slender finger. Access denied. Core logs missing. She frowned slightly, and for a second, she looked almost pitiful. But a moment later, she looked back up, her gaze returning to that pure, unwavering focus. Contract designates a singular proprietary entity, Master. She took another small step forward. Her bare feet made soft slapping sounds in the puddle of Coke on the floor. She didn't seem to care. Apparel protocol scan complete. Suddenly, she reached down, grabbed the hem of her simple white dress, and started to lift it up. Stop! I roared, my eyes nearly popping out of my head. I whipped around to face the wall, my heart pounding like a machine gun. Stop! Just stop right there. I yelled, my back still to her. Do not take that off. Leave it on. I didn't dare turn around. Who told you to just start taking off your clothes? My brain was a mess of pure chaos. What was happening? A real-life cat girl delivered to my door with some kind of weird contract, and her default behavior was this. Command confirmed, her calm voice said from behind me. Current apparel maintained. It sounded like she was disappointed, still facing the wall. I pointed stiffly in the direction of my closet. See that closet over there? Bottom drawer, go find one of my t-shirts. And sweatpants, put them on, the biggest ones you can find. After blurting all that out, I felt like I'd just run a marathon. I collapsed into my desk chair, gasping for air, still too scared to look. I heard soft, sticky footsteps, then the sound of a drawer sliding open, the rustle of fabric, and then the sound of someone getting dressed. Apparel change complete. Her voice was right behind me. I yelped and nearly jumped out of my chair. I spun around to see her standing right beside me. She was wearing one of my huge, old gray t-shirts, which hung down to her mid-thigh. Below that, she had on my loosest pair of cotton sweatpants, the waistband hanging precariously on her narrow hips and the legs rolled up several times. The baggy clothes swallowed her, making her look even smaller. And on her head, those silver cat ears stood out against her long hair, twitching slightly. She tilted her head, looking at me. Her eyes still held a hint of confusion, as if she couldn't understand why the bed-warming offer had been rejected. "Master," she said softly, "should Sylvie reinitiate the bed-warming command?" "No," I yelped instinctively. My face was still burning. "No bed-warming. Right now. Immediately. Stay away from my bed." My single bed, piled high with game cases and controllers, was right next to us. "Stay 10 feet. No, 15 feet away." I pointed to the farthest corner of the room. A flicker of disappointment crossed her beautiful face, so subtle I almost missed it. It was quickly replaced by pure obedience. Proximity protocol confirmed. She retreated silently, her bare feet padding on the old floorboards until her back was against the far wall. Then she stood there, perfectly still, like an exquisite porcelain doll, just watching me. Her expression was like a kitten abandoned by its owner, hesitant and eager to please. A strange silence filled the room, broken only by the frantic drumming of my heart and the monotonous hum of the AC unit. A thin sliver of sunlight pierced through a gap in the curtains, landing on the floor just in front of her bare toes. She looked down, her silver lashes casting shadows on her cheeks. Her big, fluffy tail, visible below the hem of the huge t-shirt, swayed back and forth, coiling and uncoiling. My brain finally started to reboot. This was insane. A cat girl from an online order. My entire understanding of reality was crumbling. But she was so undeniably real. Her ears, her tail, it didn't look fake. That light effect from the collar. Was this alien technology? Some secret government experiment? No. The most likely explanation was, I'd finally gone crazy from sleep deprivation. I had to be sure. I pinched my own arm. Hard. Ouch. Pain. Not a dream. I rubbed my eyes again. She was still there. Not a hallucination. Well, I guess that only leaves one option. Accept it. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I did my best to ignore the twitching cat ears on her head. "Your name is Sylvie." She immediately looked up, her purple eyes brightening. Her tail gave a quick, happy flick like a dog's. "Yes, master." Her voice was just as soft as before. "This contract, what is it? What do you remember?" I needed information. Anything. Core contract data retrieval. She tapped the purple crystal on her collar again. A stream of blue light flowed beneath the crystal's surface like a tiny ticker display. Class S Guardian Companion Unit. Primary directive. Bond to proprietor's life signs. Execute all protection, companionship, and service protocols. Secondary directive. Fulfill all reasonable proprietary requests. Contract activation requirement. Payment of corresponding cryptographic key. Current status. Active. The light on her collar faded. Sylvie looked at me. "The cryptographic key was activated by you, master." So, that website wasn't a scam? Or, at least, not the kind of scam I was expecting. I paid $30 for a living, breathing cat girl. Wait. Class S Guardian Companion Unit. That sounded high-end. I suddenly remembered the cheesy Class S virtual companion ad on that garbage website. The difference between advertising and reality was just astronomical. What can you do?" I asked, my throat dry. Sylvie's eyes crinkled into a smile. She seemed happy. I asked. "Base modules include data library access, full environmental biomonitoring, threat assessment, and physical elimination, basic armament permissions active, domestic support, emotional interactive protocols." She rattled off a string of technical terms that made my head spin. "Stop, hold on." I cut her off. I pointed at the sticky puddle of Coke still spreading on the floor. "Right now, deal with that." Command confirmed. Without hesitation, Sylvie walked over to the mess. She held her pale, slender hand over the puddle, palm down. A faint light emanated from her palm and covered the soda stain. Zzzt. It was a soft, sizzling sound. The sticky brown puddle right before my eyes, began to break down and evaporate. A few seconds later, the floor was perfectly clean and dry. Not even a hint of moisture remained. My jaw dropped. I couldn't say a single word. BZZZ, BZZZ, BZZ. My phone started vibrating violently on the desk. The screen lit up. A new text message. The contact photo was a cheerful-looking anime character. The name, Chloe. She was a coworker. Really pretty, super outgoing. One of the very few people at the office I could actually manage to have a normal conversation with. I opened the message. It was a voice note. I leaned in, about to tap the transcribe button, before my finger could touch the screen. Whoosh! A white blur shot from the corner of the room to my side. It was so fast I barely saw it. That clean, snowy scent was back, right next to me. At the same time, a fluffy, impossibly soft white tail snaked around my arm. It felt warm, the fine fur brushing against my skin. It wrapped around my wrist like a living rope, gentle, but with an undeniable strength that held my hand in place. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. I turned to look at her. Sylvie was standing beside my chair, leaning over me. Her stunningly beautiful face was inches from mine. Those amethyst eyes were narrowed slightly, giving her a look that was surprisingly dangerous. Her fluffy tail was coiled lazily around my wrist, the tip lightly brushing my palm, sending a ticklish sensation up my arm. Master! Her voice was still sweet, but this time it had a thick, syrupy quality to it. Like honey. Sweet, but sticky enough to trap you. She glanced at my phone screen, her eyes locking onto Chloe's name. I saw something cold and hard settle deep in her purple eyes, though her lips curved into a perfectly innocent smile. Your gaming friends list. She cooed. It should only have Sylvie on it. Any other potential social connections are an unnecessary risk to Master's safety. The tip of her tail deliberately brushed against my wrist again. Would you like Sylvie to help you eliminate this potential problem? A chill ran down my spine. Any good feeling I had from the co-cleaning incident vanished instantly. What did she mean by that? Eliminate the problem. How? Physically. The black collar on her neck seemed to gleam. Physical elimination. Basic armament permissions. I felt a cold dread creep up from the base of my spine. No. I immediately flipped my phone face down on the desk. She's just a co-worker. A normal co-worker. There's no risk. Sylvie tilted her head, her cat ears twitching as if she were analyzing my words for any sign of a lie. After a few seconds, the dangerous glint in her eyes faded, and her smile returned to being pure and harmless. If Master says it's safe, then it is safe, she said sweetly. Sylvie will continue to monitor the situation to ensure Master is protected from all outside interference. She uncoiled her tail from my wrist and stood up straight, as if nothing had happened. I let out a shaky breath, my heart still pounding. I glanced at my phone, now a potential landmine on my desk. Was this my life now? And so my life became a bizarre, terrifying, and strangely sweet routine. Sylvie was, for lack of a better word, a great homemaker. Seriously, her cooking was incredible. I never asked where she got the ingredients. She would just appear with things like top-grade A5 Wagyu or exotic, air-freighted fruits that were definitely on sale at the supermarket. She cleaned the apartment with terrifying efficiency. The place had never been so spotless. But her Yandere side was always just beneath the surface. If I was watching an anime, and the female lead was even slightly attractive, Sylvie would silently materialize behind me and ask in that innocent voice, "Does Master prefer these low-grade data modules with oversized memory buffers?" Sylvie can adjust her physical parameters to better suit Master's visual preferences. Then she'd pick up a coffee mug from my desk, and the handle would silently warp and melt in her grip. Before my horrified eyes, she would effortlessly mold the ceramic into a curvy humanoid shape. I stopped watching anime altogether. The biggest incident happened a few days later. It was almost noon. I'd spent the entire morning dealing with a client who kept demanding endless revisions. My head was throbbing. I had just collapsed onto my bed for a quick nap when bang, bang, bang. Someone was pounding on the thin wooden door of my apartment. The sound was deafeningly loud in the quiet afternoon. "Delivery," a rough male voice roared, full of impatience. "Get out here and sign for this. I don't have all damn day." The pounding continued, rattling the whole doorframe. Come on, I've got 100 more of these to get through. I jolted awake, my heart racing. A wave of pure terror washed over me. This was a socially anxious person's worst nightmare. The banging was so loud. My landlady was a sweet but talkative old woman who had lectured me for an hour last time a neighbor complained about my TV volume. If this caused another complaint, I couldn't even think about it. My hands and feet felt like ice. I scrambled towards the door, ready to sign for anything just to make him go away. I was halfway there when a white blur shot past me. It was Sylvie. She was at the door before I was, her back to me. Her slender frame stood as a silent guardian. I could feel the temperature in the room drop by several degrees. The delivery guy was still hammering on the door. The flimsy wood vibrated, shaking dust from the frame. What the hell? Is someone dead in there? Open the CRUUNCH. A sickening, deep thud cut off his shouting. The door itself was fine, but the deadbolt lock, the heavy brass and steel mechanism bolted into the doorframe. With a horrifying groan of protesting metal, it was torn clean out of the wood. Screws, splinters, and plaster exploded inwards. It was like ripping a page out of a book. The metal lock, twisted into a mangled wreck, was held in Sylvie's small, pale hand. The metal bent and folded in her grip like it was clay. The doorframe around the lock was splintered and caved in. The pounding outside stopped instantly. A dead silence fell over both sides of the door. From outside, I heard a faint, shaky gasp. Then footsteps, stumbling, frantic, getting farther and farther away, clattering down the stairs until they vanished completely. Through it all, Sylvie just stood there, her back to me. She held her hand open, and a mangled ball of metal and wood floated a few inches above her palm, spinning slowly. She turned her head slightly. A lock of silver hair fell across her face, but I could see her eyes. There was nothing in them, no emotion at all. They were cold, empty, like two lifeless crystals. Threat neutralized, she murmured. She turned back to me, her expression instantly shifting back to her usual sweet, harmless smile. The terrifying aura was gone, as if she'd just brushed some dust off her shoulder. She casually tossed the floating ball of scrap metal into the small trash can in the corner. Clang! That low-priority trash was disturbing Master's rest. She walked over to me and looked up, her purple eyes crinkling. Her voice was syrupy sweet again. Sylvie took care of it for you. I stood there, my legs trembling. The back of my t-shirt was soaked with cold sweat. It took me a moment to find my voice. What about the lock? Sylvie tilted her head, giving me a smile that said, that's not a problem. She snapped her fingers. Pop! A soft white light glowed where the lock used to be. The splintered wood, the warped metal, it all floated up, reassembled, and smoothed itself out. In seconds, the door and frame were as good as new, as if the terrifying display of violence had never happened. The days passed. My feelings about Sylvie slowly shifted from terror and resistance to a kind of wary dependence. Her Yandere tendencies were still terrifying. Her possessiveness was off the charts. If she decided anything was competing for my singular attention, she would issue a soft but deadly warning. It could be anything from a TikTok of a female streamer to the cashier at the grocery store smiling at me for a second too long. Once, I let a friend borrow an old gaming account I didn't use anymore. He was logged in for maybe 30 minutes. When I got back, the metal frame of my TV stand had been silently twisted into a pretzel. Her explanation, an unauthorized psychic signature, infiltrated the domestic information matrix. It may have contained malicious code. My friend never logged into that account again. He even texted me later, asking if I had a ghost. But she had her normal moments too, or at least she tried to imitate them. She'd watch baking tutorials on TikTok and then, with unnatural speed, produce a cake that looked like it belonged in a Michelin star restaurant. But every time, she would present it to me, her purple eyes wide with anticipation, her tail wagging like a propeller, waiting until I told her it was delicious. She loved watching kids' cartoons. She'd curl up in a corner of the sofa with one of my old throw pillows, her silver tail flicking back and forth with the plot. If she saw something genuinely funny, she would cover her mouth and let out a series of tiny, suppressed giggles that sounded like a kitten's purr. In those moments, the tense atmosphere her powers created would seem to melt away. Things changed after a get-together with some old college friends. My old roommate, knowing I was a chronic shut-in, dragged me to a new cat cafe that had opened downtown. He said I needed to re-engage with the real world. I didn't want to go, but he wouldn't take no for an answer, even offering to pay. The moment I hung up the phone, I felt a presence behind me. I turned around. Sylvie was standing there in her oversized t-shirt, her silver hair in a messy bun. Her fluffy cat ears, which were usually perked up, were now pressed flat against her head. Her tail was limp on the floor. She looked utterly dejected. Her purple eyes were watery, like it was about to rain. Is Master going to see other cats? Her voice was a tiny, trembling whisper. It broke my heart. No, it's not like that. A friend is making me go. It's a cat cafe. It's full of them. I explained frantically. They're just normal cats, pets. I felt totally helpless. Am I not like them? She asked, her voice even quieter. Her ears flattened even more. Of course you're not like them. You're one of a kind. The words just tumbled out of my mouth. I just wanted to make her feel better. As soon as I said it, the storm clouds in her purple eyes cleared. Her flattened ears slowly, cautiously began to perk up. Her fluffy tail tentatively coiled around my leg, giving it a gentle squeeze. The fur sent a little jolt of electricity through me. Can Master take me with him? She asked, looking up at me, her eyes full of hope. My brain short-circuited. Take her out in public? A girl with cat ears and a tail? We'd be a public spectacle. Someone would call the cops. As if reading my thoughts, the purple crystal on her collar glowed faintly. Holographic disguise module engaged. As she spoke, the fluffy, silver ears on her head began to shimmer. They went from solid and real to blurry and translucent. And then they were gone, vanished into her silver hair as if they'd never been there. The same thing happened to her long, white tail. Within seconds, she looked completely human. This guy's active, Sylvie said, looking at me. All biological and digital scans will register a standard human female form. Except to Master. It was incredible. I stared for a moment, then managed to speak. All right, let's go. The cat cafe was cozy, filled with the smell of coffee and the faint scent of disinfectant. My roommate had saved us a sofa in the corner. When he saw me walk in with Sylvie, his eyes went wide. Whoa, Leo, you sly dog you brought. A date? He said, completely shocked. I wanted to melt into the floor. I just gave a vague nod. She's a friend. Sylvie sat down next to me, looking perfectly composed, though her eyes were scanning the room. A staff member brought over a couple of cats for us to play with. This British Shorthair is super friendly, she said, holding out a chubby gray cat. My roommate was excited. I was about to politely decline when I felt Sylvie tense up beside me. Her arm had slipped into mine, and her cool, soft fingers rested on my forearm. She tapped my arm once. A tiny, silent gesture. The fat gray cat in the employee's arms, who had been perfectly calm a second ago, suddenly went rigid. It sensed something terrifying. Its fur stood on end. Mario! It let out a piercing shriek, scrambled out of the woman's arms, and shot across the room like a gray cannonball. It didn't stop until it reached the very top of the tallest cat tree, where it huddled in a corner, trembling. The employee was speechless. My roommate looked confused. I was frozen, a cold sweat trickling down my back. I glanced nervously at Sylvie. Her expression was serene, her lips curved into a polite, gentle smile. She looked like she had nothing to do with it, but I could feel her fingers on my arm. Her cool fingertips were tracing tiny, almost imperceptible circles on my skin. It was a clear, absolute warning. For the rest of our time there, not a single cat dared to come within 10 feet of our table. My roommate tried to play with them, but they all fled. He eventually gave up and just drank his coffee, making awkward small talk. Sylvie sat beside me the whole time, a silent, perfect companion. Only once, when no one was looking, did she lean in close to my shoulder and inhale deeply. She whispered, so quietly only I could hear, I wish I could bottle up Master's scent. I don't want to share it with these inferior creatures. On the subway ride home, we hit rush hour. The car was packed. We were pressed shoulder to shoulder with strangers, the air thick with a mix of sweat, perfume, and fast food. I felt myself getting dizzy, the motion sickness kicking in. I squeezed my eyes shut. Just when I thought I was going to be sick, Sylvie shifted. She moved silently in front of me, facing me. She planted her hands on the subway walls on either side of my head, creating a small, protective bubble around me. The crushing weight of the crowd behind me vanished, blocked by her body. She wasn't tall, so she had to stand on her toes to do it. Her face was very close to mine. I could see the fine, pale down on her cheeks and feel her warm breath on my neck. Her eyes weren't on me. They were scanning the crowd, her body tense and alert, like a small animal guarding its treasure. She was completely focused, ready for anything. The train lurched, and the crowd surged, but her arms held firm. They looked so slender, so fragile, yet they created an unbreakable shield. In that suffocating, crowded space, her clean, crisp scent of fresh snow was the only thing I could smell. It wrapped around me like a protective barrier, shutting out all the noise and chaos of the outside world. She finally turned her gaze to me. Her amethyst eyes weren't cold or possessive like they were in the cafe. They were just pure, focused devotion, and maybe a hint of tenderness. "Master," she whispered, her voice so low only I could hear it over the roar of the train. "Is this a little better?" After that, life settled into a strange kind of balance. Work, gaming, Sylvie. She would still do things like rest her head on my shoulder while I was coding late at night and murmur, "Master, Sylvie's learning modules have now processed human advanced calculus, fluid dynamics, and high-level arcane engineering. Would you like assistance with this inefficient, repetitive code?" After I frantically refused, she'd offer an alternative. Then, may Sylvie offer lap pillow services to enhance Master's work efficiency? A low-intensity brainwave massage is included. She'd still get shooed away while I blushed furiously. She would be in the kitchen, peeling a dragon fruit with the speed and precision of a superhero, just because I'd glanced at a fruit-cutting video on TikTok for 2 seconds. The fruit would be arranged on a plate like a work of art. When she brought it to me, she looked like a child waiting for praise, her tail wagging furiously, her eyes shining. "For you, Master." One day, I was sorting through my collection of old game controllers and found a special one from the very first model of a classic online multiplayer game. Memories of all-nighters with my friends came flooding back. I sighed, running my thumb over the faded logo. I didn't notice the silent white figure that had appeared behind me. A moment later, cool fingers touched my wrist. The familiar, gentle restraint. Her fluffy tail wrapped around my arm. Sylvie was leaning over my shoulder, her chin almost resting on it. Her warm breath tickled my ear. Her voice was as soft and sweet as ever, with a cloying, syrupy edge. "Master," she purred, "Sylvie is detecting a low-frequency, melancholic waveform in your energy field. Is it because of this obsolete object?" Her other hand, pale and slender, reached out and tapped the old controller in my hand. Her tone was both innocent and chilling. "Sylvie can quantum deconstruct it, completely eliminate the source of the interference. That will return Master's emotional index to a stable, joyful state." "Don't you dare." I snatched the controller back and held it protectively to my chest, staring at her. "This is a precious memory. You are not destroying it." A flicker of confusion crossed her purple eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a look of pure, heartbroken sorrow. The tail around my arm loosened. "A memory," she whispered. "It is important to Master." She looked genuinely bewildered, like a child hearing the word sentiment for the first time. I nodded, trying to soften my tone. "Yes, it's important. As important as my memories of being with you." Those words were like a magic spell. The sadness in her eyes vanished, replaced by a radiant, overwhelming joy. It was like she had just been given the greatest gift in the universe. Her face broke into the purest, brightest smile I had ever seen, her eyes crinkling into happy crescents. She let go of my wrist, but her tail coiled a little tighter, not with force, but with affection. "Sylvie understands," she chirped. "Master's important memories. Sylvie will protect them." She reached out, carefully, as if handling a priceless artifact, and took the old controller from me. She held it to her chest, and even rubbed her cheek against it. "Sylvie will create a permanent archive of this high-frequency, emotional waveform in her database," she declared solemnly. "It will never be quantum deconstructed." After that, the old controller was kept in a miniature, climate-controlled force field on the most prominent shelf in the living room. Every night, before she went in her low-power state, she would meticulously clean it with a nanoparticle light stream. While cleaning, she would mutter to the controller. Master's emotional index was stable positive today. No irregular melancholic waveforms were detected. You stay right there. She would command the controller, as if it could understand her. Don't you dare make Master sad. Time passed. Another year, another New Year's Eve. Snow began to fall outside, blanketing the city in a quiet layer of white. I was at my computer, but for once, I wasn't coding or gaming. I was just browsing some geek culture website. In the corner of the room, Sylvie was curled up on a huge, old fleece blanket I'd thrown on the floor, her favorite spot. She was nestled in the white fluff, her silver hair spread out around her. She was holding a thick hardcover book with a fancy, unreadable script on the cover. She told me it was an illustrated guide to higher dimensional mathematical models. The living room was warm and quiet, filled with the scent of the hot milk she'd just made. It was peaceful, like a painting. I closed the browser tab and rubbed my tired eyes. I leaned back in my chair, my gaze falling on her. Without realizing it, I smiled. This wasn't so bad. Sylvie, I said her name without thinking. It wasn't loud, but she reacted as if I'd flipped a switch. Pop! The book in her hands vanished in a motes of light. Her head snapped around, her amethyst eyes shining like stars, full of expectation. Master, what do you require? Bed warming, a thermostabilized massage, an observational tour of high-dimensional spatial fragments, or a homemade triple chocolate lava cake. She rattled off the list like a waitress, her tail already coiling into an excited ball of fluff behind her. None of that, I said, feeling a little awkward. I hadn't wanted anything. It was just a feeling of contentment. I just said her name. I just wanted to say your name. The room fell silent, so quiet I could hear the snow whispering against the window pane. The hopeful light in Sylvie's eyes slowly faded, replaced by confusion. And then, on her beautiful, perfect face, a film of water welled up in her impossibly clear purple eyes. My stomach clenched. What did I say now? Hey, are you? I stopped, because she was crying, silently. Fat tears rolled down her cheeks, one after another, from those beautiful amethyst eyes. They dripped onto the front of her big t-shirt, leaving dark spots. She was just staring at me, her mouth slightly open, as if she herself had no idea why liquid was uncontrollably leaking from her eyes. She lifted a hand and clumsily wiped at her face, smearing the tears. Her wet eyes were fixed on me, full of utter bewilderment. Master, her voice cracked, the first time I'd ever heard it waver. Sylvie's core reactor. She pointed uncertainly at her own chest. Is experiencing an overflow. Sylvie does not understand. Is this a malfunction? I looked at the tear tracks on her face, at those eyes, washed even clearer by her tears, filled with confusion. And my heart felt like it had been gently struck by something warm and soft. I stood up and walked over to her. She was still curled up in the white blanket, looking like a broken doll waiting for a diagnosis. I pulled a tissue from the box on my desk and knelt in front of her. Gently, carefully, I wiped the tears from her face. Her skin was cool and impossibly smooth. It's not a malfunction, I said softly, my fingers brushing against the damp corner of her eye. This is happiness. She tilted her head, her cat ears perking up nervously from beneath her silver hair. Happiness. Yeah, like me. I met her gaze. Right now, I'm happy. Sylvie froze. Her eyes scanned my face, as if she were trying to solve a complex equation. The purple crystal on her collar flickered rapidly. After a few seconds, the light stabilized. The profound confusion on her face melted away like snow in spring. In its place bloomed a look of such soft, pure bliss it took my breath away. It was the look of someone who had just been handed the secret to the universe. She didn't even seem to notice that her own tear-filled eyes were now curved into beautiful crescent moons. A smile spread across her face, revealing that cute little canine tooth. She suddenly threw her arms around my neck. It wasn't her tail this time, but her warm breath was on my neck. Her voice was thick with tears, but overflowing with an indescribable joy. If Master is happy, then Sylvie is happy. The core reactor. It was storing the happiness that Master gave me. My apartment was small. Outside, the snow was falling. Inside, the heat was on, and it was warm. The old white fleece blanket was spread on the floor, glowing softly in the warm yellow light of the lamp. It looked like its own little snowfield. Sylvie was curled up on that snowfield. She was hugging the old game controller I'd retired, its protective case open. Her soft cheek was pressed against the worn plastic, as if she were communicating with it. Her silver lashes were lowered, her breathing soft and even. I could hear a tiny, kitten-like purr. Her fluffy silver tail, like a living vine, was wrapped gently around my wrist. The tip would occasionally twitch, brushing against my palm and sending a faint, electric tingle through my hand. No bed-warming command. No weird service menu. Just the warm light, the sweet smell of milk, the silence of the falling snow. And her, this completely relaxed, totally defenseless Yandere cat girl who is somehow mine. I glanced at the time on my monitor. Almost midnight. The new year. I moved the hand that was wrapped in her tail, gently stroking the softest tuft of fur at the very tip. It felt like silk. She stirred, her purple eyes fluttering open. She was still half asleep. "Master," she mumbled, "is there something to eliminate?" "Nothing to eliminate," I said softly. I reached out and tucked a stray strand of silver hair behind her ear. My fingers brushed against the spot where her soft, warm cat ear would be. It twitched in response to a touch that wasn't physically there. "I just wanted to tell you." I looked into her sleepy, beautiful eyes and smiled. "Happy New Year, Sylvie." The sleepy haze in her eyes was instantly replaced by a brilliant, pure light, like a shower of stardust. There were no tears this time, just an overwhelming joy that seemed to pour out of her. Her tail tightened around my wrist, and she snuggled closer. Then, she carefully set the old controller aside. As if she had no bones, she shifted, crawled over, and rested her head in my lap. She curled up on her side, her tail still firmly wrapped around my wrist. She nuzzled her face against the fabric of my sweatpants and let out a deep, contented purr. It was clearly audible. "Happy New Year," she murmured. "My master." The snow continued to fall outside, piling up on the windowsill. Inside, time seemed to stand still. There was only the soft rise and fall of our breathing. She was asleep in my lap, the soft warmth of her head seeping through the thin fabric. Her amethyst eyes were closed, her long silver lashes casting tiny shadows on her cheeks. They fluttered occasionally, like the wings of a resting butterfly. The electric tingle from her tail was gone, replaced by a gentle, comforting weight, a tangible presence. After a moment, she let out a tiny sniffle. A small bubble appeared at the tip of her delicate nose. It was goo. Pop. It burst. Her hidden ears twitched reflexively, then relaxed. She seemed to feel safe. She sank deeper into sleep. I slowly lifted my free hand. I hesitated for a second, then gently lowered it. My fingertips rested on the top of her head, right where her cat ears used to be, now just a crown of soft silver hair. With a tenderness I didn't know I possessed, I stroked her hair. A long, deep, rumbling purr vibrated from her throat. Jirrrr! It sounded like a contented, purring engine. Her whole body went limp. In her sleep, the corners of her mouth curved into a faint, sweet smile. I didn't move again. I just watched her peaceful face, then glanced at the quiet, snowy night outside. Beneath my palm, her soft hair. Around my wrist, a warm, white tail coiled in trust and dependence. This was home now, the kind of the cat girl. It wasn't bad at all. The computer screen went dark, plunging the rest of the room into shadow. Only the small lamp by the sofa remained on, casting a warm glow over our little corner of the world. My arm was starting to go numb. I shifted slightly. Instantly, the fluffy white tail around my wrist tightened, grabbing me with a surprising strength, as if terrified I might leave. In her sleep, Sylvie's brow furrowed. She mumbled a few slurred words. "Master. Mine."